IndieQuest Halloween Spooktacular 2022. I don't think this voice is working very well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to IndieQuest, your celebration of the indie and obscure. It's Halloween time right now. This episode will be live a few days before Halloween. So what do we do each time? We bring spooky games to the quest log. My name is Josh. I'm here with my co-host today, Seth, also known as Captain Drachma. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to talk about some quote-unquote spooky games. I hope that I don't disappoint because as I've explained before, I'm not a big spooky game player, but I tried to bring something that's at least spooky adjacent. So, and I think people are going to want to stick around to hear about it. So,
Yeah, I have one that is spooky, but I say more action-packed today. So, I mean, this is cool. This is like the 2-year anniversary of the show. Obviously, Steve's not here to celebrate with us, but he was here last time. So he's a traveling boy. He's traveling around. That's why he's not here today. But I looked forward to this episode every single year. I could talk to myself and still be excited for a spooky episode. So
yeah, I mean, he seemed like he was super bummed to not be able to be here, but it is what it is, and he assured us that he won't be missing any in the near future, at least. So we have plenty of Steve and all three of us in the future episodes. But for right now, it's just me and my buddy Frantic. So
I would just miss the sweet, spooky bandana. That's what I was looking forward
yeah.
to. Just seeing what jack-o'-lantern or orange bandana he was going to wear. You never know. But so today, I think that we're just going to jump right into the quest log because you warned me. You're like, beforehand, you're like, I have a lot I want to say about this game. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go first with my quest log pick for my spooky pick this year. Because I think that there is some things to say about this game, but not as much as you probably have to say about your game. So today I brought Killing Floor and Killing Floor 2. Is that cheating to bring 2 games?
I am never going to probably bring either of those games, so it's not cheating to me. But I do need to take a gander at what these are because I think I've heard of them, but I can't picture them in my head.
Okay, they're pretty much Left 4 Dead clones. I'll just say that right out the gate. They are very similar to a Left 4 Dead style game. I bring Killing Floor 1 to throw on the side quest because I'm just throwing that one on the side quest, and we're going to go more in depth with 2. That's what I figured because I think both of them deserve a shout out.
Okay.
Because Killing Floor 1 kind of lays the foundation for a really fun and frenetic game. Basically, it's a wave-based game, and there are different types of creatures that are in the environment. It's up to 4 players. There's a badass heavy metal soundtrack that's playing in the background as you're shooting zombies with boom tubes and giant blades called lawnmower blades, or different things of that matter. And like there are so many weapons that you can play as, and so many different like skills and perks that you can level up. So it's kind of like Left 4 Dead, but you basically play with your friends and you level up a class or abilities. So you got the Berserker, you got, which is more like melee focus, you got Commando, which is more about like Stalker, trying to get like headshots and things from a distance, and you got like Support, where you can heal your other players and your people. You have a healing shotgun that you can shoot people, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And it's pretty much just survive the waves with these ridiculous monsters that just have like killing like crazy claws that come out of their arms, and there's like guys that crawl on the walls. There's like these guys called Gorefast that come in. They have like these like spiky collars and spiky arms, and they like do like almost like twist moves, like, and they're like super deadly and hard to kill. And your whole goal is to get through all these waves and then defeat the final boss of that map, and it's usually a patriarch of that area. So the patriarch will come out, and each area and map usually has different moves in different areas they'll like traverse in. Sometimes they'll shoot blood out at you, sometimes they'll impale you, things like that. It's just super Halloween. It's just like a slasher movie that you're just trying to survive, pretty much.
Who developed this game? Because gosh, like it's super. At least Killing Floor 2 is what I'm looking at right now, and the graphical style, like it seems like they had to have had some money behind it because it looks really nice. Although I know that you can get some of those engines that look really nice now for a lot more. They're a lot more accessible than they used to be. But this is like a really nice, almost AAA looking game based on these screenshots.
Yeah, so Tripwire Interactive did this game, and they did the original. This is like the first game, or one of the very first games they do.
Yeah.
They've also done the Chivalry series, which is like a melee focused one. They did Maneater, which is that shark game everybody loves,
Oh
the
yeah.
RPG shark
Yep.
game. It's a smaller team. It is definitely still indie. It's just, I would say, as Berger was trying to get us to start saying, it's more of like a triple I team. It's like indie with a little bit of a budget, but the reason they have a budget is because Killing Floor 1 was kind of like a cult classic, and they kind of built from that. They have other games, like I think they might do like Day of Defeat or something like that, like some old school, nerdy. Oh, Red Orchestra is the one they used to do, like kind of nerdy PC stuff, like if you're into FPSs back in like 2005, you're like, oh yeah, Red Orchestra was the shit, type of thing. Killing Floor 2 came out in '09, so just give you some reference, or the first Killing Floor did in '09, and then Killing Floor 2 is 2016, so that's after they had some success with the other games. So I wanted to bring Killing Floor 1 because it does lay the groundwork, and I think it's worth playing if you get it for super cheap, like on a Steam sale, and you just want to try it out. It looks very Half-Life 2. The graphics aren't as good. The controls aren't as smooth and fluid. The music still blast. It's like you want to feel cool. You feel cool playing this game. Like you go in there with your team. There's like loud, like bombastic metal music just shredding in your ears, and you're just shooting some zombies. And occasionally, if you do a really cool kill, everybody's screens will slow-mo. So say you're playing around with me, Seth, and you just get this like amazing shotgun right into like a stalker or whatever. His head explodes perfectly, and you do like a multi-kill or something. It'll slow down, and everybody can just see you being a badass killing
Oh,
like multiple
nice.
creatures. Yeah, so has those like glory kills pretty much, kind of like the modern Dooms, but like it actually slows everybody's game down for just a second, just to showcase the awesomeness, pretty much. So
So you mentioned playing with other people. What is the single player experience even worthwhile? Maybe we're gonna get to that in a little bit. But whenever I hear of because Left 4 Dead, I have dabbled with in the past, and that is definitely, at least in my opinion, a better game to play with people, right? So is this the same type of way, or?
yeah, it's definitely a better game to play with people. Um, it's actually fine. It still has an active community. Both games do, so it's actually fine to just join games and just play with people that are already playing in
I see.
lobbies.
Yep.
Yeah, it's actually, you can just hop in, and people are generally, it's a pretty positive community. Even if you're not leveled up, they'll be like, oh yeah, what do you need to level up, and they'll help you level up.
Nice.
Whatever class you want to try to level up. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and take Killing Floor 1 off the table. That's a side quest game. It's a very bare minimum. I say it's like kind of the bones of Killing Floor 2. So that's gonna go on the side quests, and then we're gonna jump into Killing Floor 2 a little more, because I think that the amount of detail in the class system and everything is better. Like I said, you can do, okay, so each round you play a round. So you start up, you kill the 20 zombies that are in the map or whatever. And these are all like genetically weird zombies. They are, like I said, there are, looks like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 classes that you're going to be dealing with. And they're just a bunch of different like creatures. So there's like the bloat, he like explodes. Clout slasher, like he has the knives for hands, like I talked about. The stalker like kind of like teleports to you, like on you, and starts screaming and does damage when they scream. And just all of them have a little different, like a move set and attack similar to Left 4 Dead. So you're going to kill those enemies, and when you do that, you get money. And then you visit the shop between rounds, and it's kind of a risk reward. Do you want to save your money this time, just have a basic pistol, and like whatever base class weapon you start with? Sometimes you start with a shotgun, depending on your class, or SMG. And it's very minimum. Usually you start with a pistol, and that's it.
Yep.
And so you can be like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and go for like, I guess just a little bit more powerful submachine gun this time, just to get me through the next couple rounds, build up some money, and then you can upgrade your armor, upgrade your health, things like that. So it's kind of like you are trying to, how do I want to play this round? Do I want to play more defensively? Okay, I'm going to upgrade my weapons, my armor pack, and my health. Okay, I'll do that first, and then I'll just do basic weapons. Or I'm not going to spend any money this round. I'm just going to keep playing, play it safe, let everybody else do the killing. I'll save a little bit more money, go next time and get the bigger weapon. So it's kind of trying to predict what your next step's going to be. And by the end of the game, if your team is really good and you get to the end and you're fighting that patriarch, it's going to be really brutal and hard. You're going to want a super strong weapon.
Yeah.
So hopefully you get like the more upgraded, grenade launcher or whatever else there is.
So every time you start a game with your party, do you start like back at the beginning? Like you have to, if I play through a few maps with my group and then we want to take a break and come back tomorrow, can I start back with everything I had?
No, it's per game, so it's per
okay.
round that you're buying stuff. So,
Okay.
but there are progressive things like you're still upgrading your actual classes. So, like if you're a demolitionist, you're going to be upgrading like your general base stats for your like explosive stuff.
Okay.
And each class has similar things, like so the firebug, like they do a lot of fire like weapons that you can buy. So each class actually has a certain like gun locker, you can buy guns. So if you have the firebug, which is the fire flamey guy, you get, I'm looking at one right here, it's caulk and burn. It's like looks like a caulking gun that shoots flames out of it. That's pretty cool. And you can get Molotov cocktails with that one. But if you go and do like Gunslinger, which is more about dual wielding pistols, you get 1950s or 1856 revolvers that you can have, and a nail bomb, more cowboy themes, I guess. And you get a Bowie knife, So depending on your class, you have a different set of guns that you can pick too. And so the fun is just like trying out the different classes, find one that kind of suits you the most or that you like to play the most, and then try to level that up so you can have better stats for that specific class.
So your stats carry over. So it's kind of like a roguelite in that way, but like a cooperative shooter roguelite where you do get some meta progression as you're playing. You actually get to build up your character. So I guess that's my other question, and I was thinking about it earlier. If I choose a class at the beginning, I have to keep riding with that class. I can't flip and carry over stats between classes. Like I need to stick to that class, or I can start a new class and I still have to build that class up, right?
Yeah, so it's like, so basically think of like I guess Call of Duty match where you go in and you build your guns and things, your loadout.
Yep.
It's similar to that. You're going to start your match in a lobby, and your loadout's going to be what class do I want to pick, and you can change your skin. They have different skins to pick, obviously, because they have like crazy clowns and things you can be, whatever, because it's spooky horror type game. But then you would pick, say, oh, this time I just want to like blow things up. I'm going to be demolition this time, or hey, this time I'm going to be more of a like a healer class, so I'm gonna go with like what is it called? It's called support. You're gonna pick support, and I'm gonna be more in the background trying to heal people and helping out where I can with the killing. It's like, or I'm gonna be on the front line with the flamethrower, or I'll be a field medic. There's different classes there, so it's like you can cooperate with your team. Like, hey, what class should I pick, or what class are you guys gonna pick? You can actually see on the screen which ones they're going to pick too, and then go from there. Or say, hey, this is my class. I'm running with Firebug. I like fire. I'm just going to just keep leveling Firebug. But whenever you use a class, it tallies up. Like if you're a healing class, it's going to tell you points for your healing stats, and you're going to gain increase and everything on that. Gotcha. If you're like a fire guy, the more fire damage you do, it's going to level up everything for that class. So it's a game where it's fun to play a lot of with your friends, Yeah, and it's fun to play. The solo part is the part where it's kind of like, yes, it's still fun to do, but it is definitely more fun with friends. So,
see, I'm not a big first-person shooter fan in general. Like, probably on the lower end of my favorite genres, but anything with a cool class system, I am always into. So, like, even playing, like I said, don't get into those games, but I loved the idea of Overwatch when it came out, right? And I know that's not this type of game; that's a competitive first-person shooter. But just being able to pick a different character and have a different gameplay style every time you play, if you feel like it, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I have actually been playing a lot of Overwatch 2 since that came out. I know there was issues with it. It's not so much the same as this, but I love games with that type of like flexibility. It's like today I want to heal a bunch of people,
Yep.
so I can do that. Or I want to kind of play a passive game, so I'll just be support. I'll help other people kill a lot of zombies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always fun. I do want to shout out the soundtrack for both of the games. Like if you like some metal music, if you like some kick-ass shredding guitars, there's not very much vocalization. There's a few tracks with vocalization, but mostly it's just like it feels like the Doom 2016 soundtrack. It's that
Nice.
in your face and badass. Like, and they always do. When the waves come in and then the first killing starts happening and then you just hear that guitar start shredding, you just get so it's like, even especially if you were in headphones and they're like really turned up and it's like kind of quiet, everybody's there's like little sound bites when you like buy stuff. He's like, loads of money, loads of money. You hear that a bunch of times, and then you'll be like, and then you just hear a little bit of silence, and then you hear, and then it's like music starts kicking in, all the bad guys start swarming in, and you just feel like you're like on the brink trying to like just survive. So it's just, I feel like if you want a game that gives you that feeling of like a Left 4 Dead, this really does deliver. It delivers a lot for that, and it's just very addicting to me. This whole game. That's why I'm saying there's not a lot to say about this game. Like it's a really badass first person shooter, perfect for this time of year. Get a few friends together. It's usually on sale for really cheap, and just destroy some bad guys and try to get to the end boss of each of the different maps. The maps from the first game did carry over to the second game, and then they added even more. And sometimes during events like Christmas time coming up, they'll probably like decorate it with Christmas lights and things like that too. So they try to keep it on theme for the year. So right now there's probably, I mean, I played a little bit of it, like a few matches just to refresh my memory, but like there's like jack-o'-lanterns and things everywhere on the maps, which is pretty cool right now.
So I guess my last question, like it seems like it has that arcade feel, and maybe it's more of a statement than a question, but I really can appreciate some of these games that bring that like 4-player arcade feel to your home where you don't have to actually be standing next to your buddies. Like I don't know. Honestly, I am seriously considering like this would be a great game if you have 3 friends to play with, and just because it's 4 at a time, right?
Yeah, and it's 4-player, and I think you can do it like 2-player if you want to, or however many people are. I've definitely played 2-player in the original Killing Floor, which, like I said, it's the same game, just the bones of the new one. So yeah, I've played plenty of 2-player Killing Floor back in the day, and Killing Floor 2 I mostly played solo and had a lot of fun with.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, you can still get fun out of it without having a 4-player squad. Like if you have a Discord, like the amazing Polymedia Discord, if people wanted to play together in there, that would get some people together and play it. That's definitely a fun thing you can do. But yeah, it's a 4-player game, but I think that like you can enjoy it without the crew,
Right.
too. Yeah.
There is an end state, right? Like it's not just wave. Like you said, there's a patriarch, but then like you can get credits, right? You beat it.
I don't think credits roll, but it's be like you defeated this. It'll show on your stats like you defeated this map, and you can always replay the map and try it again if you want. Yeah, and there's a ton of maps now. Like they've put out many, and I think there's some user created ones too that you can jump into. So
cool.
Well, on the PC at least. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you dig it. So we know that Killing Floor 1 is a side quest game, because it was kind of the introduction to this series, and Killing Floor 2 sounds like it built upon it. So where is that going to fall in the quest log?
I think it's a main quest game. I definitely think that if any of the words Left 4 Dead like awesome killing zombies in waves, in like with a little bit of progression and plenty of gore, Like I didn't even mention like it's super gory. Like you're
It
shooting
looks
heads
like
off. Yeah, you're shooting hearts out of characters. You're stabbing and slicing limbs off of creatures. If that's something up your alley, you're definitely gonna have a good time too. Um, and yeah, it's just a really good time. I always have fun when I play a match, and it's like one of those popcorn games you can play 2 matches, get like 30 to 40 minutes of your night taken up by something really fun. Don't always have to pay super close attention to it. Just try to survive and still have a blast. Or you can sit down and play for 5-10 hours straight and still have just that much fun trying to get your SWAT class up to whatever level, you know. So I think it's flexible and super awesome game and series to bring for our Spooktacular episode today.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, like I said, I've definitely heard of it quite a bit, and I've definitely seen screenshots of it, but never heard anybody go in depth about it. And it's probably because it's not something that I would seek out myself. But honestly, with everything you described, it's definitely something I'd like to check out, especially if I have a friend or two that is also into a game like this. I could see it being very fun with the group and being everybody being on mics and laughing and yeah.
Yeah, just everybody on Discord just bullshitting. Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know if this game's a little older, so I don't think it has cross play. Like I don't think PlayStation 4 and Xbox and a PC talk to each other like newer games do. So you probably would have to pick the same platform if you're going to play it with friends. That is a caveat I should shout out. But yeah, I mean, any game before 2019 probably is going to be like that. Yeah. So it's a 2016 game, so you're probably going to expect that to be that way. That's just how the nature of it. But yeah, Killing Floor 2 and Killing Floor 1, if you find it like for $1 on Steam and want to try it out, I'd say that's worth the shot for that. But if you can get Killing Floor 2 for a few bucks, $2-3, it's literally that cheap most of the time. I think right now it's not as cheap as usual, but it's usually very affordable game, so should be able to grab that and get some good internet 4-player co-op action in. And speaking of action, we have another game for the quest log. I'm working on my segues. I'll get there one day. It's only been 5 years of podcasting, you know. One of these years I'll get better at it. All right. All right, Seth, what game did you bring today?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you even further because I'm going to have to tell you your segue wasn't exactly great purely because I did not bring a very action-heavy game this time. But it is a good guess because a lot of times I do.
I tried.
Today, I am bringing a game called Beacon Pines. Have you heard of Beacon Pines, Josh?
I keep seeing this on my list.
What
What is this game?
You do.
I keep seeing it like recommended to me. I don't know what it is. I'm going to pull up a trailer, but go ahead and explain it to the folks out there.
I'm glad that you've seen it because honestly, I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to give a little brief intro and I'm going to tell a story about how I found it because I found it and I told you and Steve just dropped it in IndieQuest the one day and I was like, I just found a game completely organically that I'm going to play for our Halloween thing. And it's very rare that happens anymore. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but it was developed by a studio called Hiding Spot. From what I can see, this is the only game they've ever developed. So it was published by Fellow Traveler though. And Fellow Traveler they've published a bunch of story-driven indie games, right? So they've actually also published a game that we've also brought to IndieQuest. Steve actually brought it, Citizen Sleeper, which a lot of people probably know plenty about, right? It's probably one of the better indie games this year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, same.
And Paradise Killer.
Yeah, Paradise Killer also, as well. Yep.
I know Pam is a huge fan, and when she was a guest on the show, she brought that.
Oh, yeah. So, yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Really,
this looks very cute.
Yes.
I'll say that much.
Yes. It's very cute, but it has quite the slant, which is why it really toes the line on whether it belongs on a Halloween-themed episode of IndieQuest. But there's a lot of creepy stuff that take place during it, and a lot of the buzzwords when you're going to actually like see descriptions of the game and things. They always say like horror and spooky and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, if it's got that stuff, if the developer is using that to describe the game, then I would assume it fits. And it does. It definitely does. And I'll get into that some more later. But it actually just released. So it actually came out on the 22nd of September last month.
Yeah.
So it's barely a month old. And it's come out to Switch, Xbox, Steam, and itch.io. From what I could tell, it is not out on the PlayStation series of consoles. But I did do a little research before coming on here, and it looks like it's on Game Pass. So, if anybody has Game Pass, probably might want to check it out if you like the review, right? So,
Awesome.
yeah. So, the organic way I found it, I was actually just scrolling through my Switch eShop. I was looking for a game called Katamari Damacy to
Love it.
Yes, I did too. It's great. To play for the Polykill Challenge, and it happened to be on sale. I actually Googled it, so it happened to be on sale. And rather than typing it in, I was being lazy. I just, or I wanted to see what else was on sale. I just went to Great Deals. And I was looking for Katamari Damacy and seeing what else was on sale at the time, and floated by Beacon Pines. And I kind of look at it, and I'm like, oh, this is a very interesting cover art style. Like, it kind of seems spooky. There's a couple animals like that are very clearly anthropomorphic, right? So they're kind of like holding a flashlight and like look like they're getting into trouble in like the woods on the cover, right? So I'm like, that looks Halloween adjacent. So I click on it, and yeah, there's a lot of that. There's something weird going on, and there's a mystery and all this stuff. It's like, okay, that's definitely horror adjacent, or there's something going on in there that is at least Halloween-ish themed. So that's kind of why I picked it up for this. So it's very rare that I've ever, at least lately, not ever seen anything about a game and it just pop up in front of me and click on it or basically just buy it. Actually, it was $18. It was $2 off on sale, and so full price it is $20. It's a $20 game. Which is fairly pricey for a lot of indie games, but as I talk, I think that it's probably worth the $20. But on Game Pass, I think, Josh, you might have to double check me on that because I don't have Game Pass, but I read something that it was on Game Pass. So
I believe I saw it on there. I'm going to take your word for it. I think it is.
Okay, cool.
99.9% sure.
Okay,
there we go.
Cool. So lots of people should be able to check it out, which would make me very happy. All right, overview. It is basically a choose-your-own-adventure style visual novel, which, if anyone's listened to anything I've ever brought here before, is not typically games I go for, but it's just super unique in that it's probably just me, but I have not played very many video games that were choose-your-own-adventure like this one is, which is pretty interesting. And something that I grew up with was actually reading choose your own adventure books, and I kind of liken this to, there was a series of Goosebumps books that were called Reader Beware. You choose the scare, and it was like,
I love those.
Yeah.
I love those.
I loved them too because I loved the Goosebumps books, but to be able to, I just remember as a kid flipping through the pages and like, oh, you get to this page and it says, if you want to do this, go to page 67. If you want to do this, go to page 42. And I just thought that freedom, I guess as a kid when you don't have a lot of freedom, right, and you're just kind of doing what your parents tell you most of the time, and that's kind of how your life is, having that freedom in your book, it was just like mind-blowing to me. And of course, you would choose one of them and you'd go there and you read like 3 sentences down really quick and you notice that you're going to die. So then you hold your place where you were and you go back and then you're like, okay, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go the other way, so that you can avoid death or avoid the bad thing that happens, right? So there's a lot of different branching paths in this story. I'm not going to go super in depth on story stuff because I think it's very worth experiencing. I'll touch on it a little bit later, but prior to getting into that, I'm going to get into the gameplay, basically how you play this game, if you want to call it a game. There is some video game-like things, but as I explained before, it is in the genre it is. So you play as both the reader of this story and as Luca, who is like a little deer, like a 12-year-old boy, but in deer form.
Mm-hmm.
You basically run around the world as Luca, talking to everybody that you can talk to, getting into trouble with your friend Rolo, who is like a little cat or like a tiger, basically. And you guys just get into mischief. And like 12-year-olds do, you end up getting in over your head at a certain point, to the point where you start branching paths, right? And you basically have to choose, do I want to say this thing to complete this sentence, or do I want to say this thing to complete this sentence? So that's kind of the main element. As you go through the game, you actually collect these things called charms. And they kind of appear as like badges, and every one of them has a form of Luca on it, the main character. And they're all like, he's either like, there's one called Malice. Like I'll give you an example. Malice, you eventually at some point in the game, you get this badge or this charm called Malice, and on the charm itself has Luca like curling up like a very sinister grin, right? And at certain points of the story, the narrator is actually reading the storybook to you as the sentences are actually getting written to an actual book, and I'll get more on that in the presentation. But you basically get to a point where there's a blank spot that you can put a word. And sometimes you haven't actually collected enough words to fill that out. You only have one. So you only have one option. But I could put Malice in there, right? And that's going to defer the story. So like it's a sentence and you just plug a word in, and then it takes place in the actual book itself, and you get to watch it all animated out, whatever your choice is. And then you get to see whether the story gets progressed or if something bad ends up happening, right? And then the narrator will always say, "Oh, looks like that story didn't go as well as you might have thought it would." The end type of thing, right? And then the story finishes, and then the narrator's like, "Well, that's not how we wanted to end." So then you can go back and pick a different path to plug in a different word, or go back to the exact same spot if you had multiple choices, right? So that is the main way the gameplay progresses.
So on these repeated attempts, does it ever feel tedious? This actually sounds like it's a shorter game, so maybe it doesn't. But is it more of like it clicks the thing in your mind and it's kind of fun, like, oh, what's going to happen next? Or is it more like, oh, I got to go back, figure out what's going on with this? Like, is it more of a fun mechanic or a tedious one?
It is the furthest thing from tedious. Like,
okay,
the only thing that's a little bit of a hang up, and I'll just put this out there right now, is there are so many different branching paths, so many as in like 4, right? So it's not like anything crazy.
right.
But things change between these paths, and you're kind of jumping around in the different canons or whatever you want to call it, like the different storylines. So the only thing that is a little frustrating is that you kind of have to remember what is going on in each path, right? Or else you're going to get confused. Like, well, what happened with this one? It's been like an hour since I've been down this path, and I can't quite remember exactly what was going on in this one. So you almost have to, it allows you to kind of like click down in the tree so you can kind of refresh yourself a little bit, because there's different pictures that come up. So you can kind of be like, oh, I remember what was going on with this one. This person was lost, or this person grabbed this other person, right? And that's what's going on in this path. So now that kind of, I remember it now. But no, the furthest thing from tedious, if anything, the game is about 6 to 7 hours, like not a very long game. And I wish it was double that. And maybe it would have gotten old after a while, but I kept telling Paige, actually, like I was like doing everything I could to stop playing, because for 2 reasons. I knew I had to bring it here, and I probably started it earlier than I should have, but I would just sit there and I just want to keep going and keep going and keep going. I gotta step away because I need to just, kind of try to extend it across these 2 weeks. But it was hard to not play for longer than 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Like it could, if you had an afternoon free, you could totally blow through this whole game and not even
Awesome.
think twice. It's that kind of game.
So it's like super compelling storytelling. Then that's what I'm getting from that. Yeah, like
yes.
So, I mean, do you want to go into a little bit of that? Some of the story stuff that grabbed you, without too much spoilers.
Yeah. So all that story stuff is going to lead me into the presentation, and I'll start talking about how the story is presented.
Okay.
But it's gorgeous, like you were saying, very cutesy, but very, very pretty game. Like
it looks hand painted.
Yes.
Like from the pictures and things I'm seeing here. Yeah.
And it's a storybook art style. And I know we've talked about having different games having this storybook or children's book art style, but this is literally what that is because it basically has like a clouded area around the outside, right? And when you first start playing, you're not entirely sure why that is. Well, then when you actually get to make those choices, it actually blows back. And there's a book, like you're actually reading a book, and the art that you were looking at in the game is just on one page, like cut out, like you would see in an actual book, right? Like obviously the majority of kids' books, they have like these very small images, several places within the book, rather than having the entire page filled up with art. And that's exactly what this one does, and it just does it so well. It is so good looking, and it makes a lot of sense with the gameplay, right? So, but yeah, like I said, you're literally reading a book, and one of the best things about it is there is a narrator that talks like when there are pivotal points in the story, the narrator will speak up and say this or that, or when the actual story is being written down in the book and those parts where you blow back and actually get to see the book itself and make choices, the narrator is the one talking. And it's a woman named Kirsten Mize, and she does a fantastic job. Like, she is really good narrator, at least in Beacon Pines. I'm not entirely sure what other works she's done, but super good. Very, very emotional. Puts a lot of good emphasis and really gives the story a good backing. Like, I feel like that having a narrator can be make or break at times, because if you don't have a great one, then it takes a lot of the oomph out of the story. And she does a great job. I don't know. I think there is a way to turn the narration down or off, and I would not do that because she does so well with it, and very worth listening to.
Yeah, she like draws you into the story more. Instead of you just reading text on a screen, you actually feel like the world's living more because of the voice acting. That's great.
When there's happy stuff going on, she's very upbeat. When there's like monotonous, somber stuff going on, she's got that, she gets her tones a little bit deeper and like makes it a little, like, sets the mood for what you're doing. But the narrator's awesome. The character voices, on the other hand, are bleeps and bloops, and they kind of remind me of Banjo-Kazooie in a way. Like when you're actually in the story itself and the narrator's not talking and the characters are talking amongst each other, it's kind of the beep, 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 beep. But it's a lot softer than Banjo-Kazooie is, because Banjo-Kazooie can be very annoying. But I did end up turning those down. I think it's worth having them in the background because they can get higher pitched or lower pitched depending on the situation. But it's just added extra. It's not extremely necessary, I guess. So I would understand people turning it off, right? So,
right.
So,
and actually, I think, I don't know. I feel like I brought this quest log before. Lost Words Beyond the Page. Did I bring that here?
Maybe.
Maybe. I feel like I talked about it on a podcast before. I'm not sure if I brought it here or not, but it's similar idea. I was going to reflect back to that, but I guess maybe I haven't talked about it on here, but it's a game like that. It has a platformer instead of the narrative elements, but it has a storybook that you go back to with a narrator that does a similar thing. So that's what it was reminding me of. I was looking that up. I was like, what was that game called? I played like a year and a half ago, but yeah, that was the game. But yeah, so I don't know. It's just something I connected in my head. So maybe I didn't bring it here, but definitely an interesting mechanic that I haven't seen very often.
Yeah. At least for me, that's something that I haven't. Like, I know there's plenty of visual novels And
Right.
like I've played some visual novel-esque games, but it's never like literally a novel. The narrator tells you you get to choose the story. You get to choose the outcome. And like right out of the gate, you find that out. And it makes for a very interesting playthrough because you can find those badges or the charms. And once you find one and you notice how much it can change the story as you go through, that's all you ever want to do is find them. And they're hardly missable at all. I don't think you can miss any that are pivotal to the story. So they kind of, you're given them as you talk to different characters that you have to talk to. But as soon as you get one, you're like, oh, I wonder where else I can use that. And you just want to go back right away. I usually wouldn't. I would progress to the end of whatever I was currently doing. But then I jump around and see where can I use that new charm, right, to try to change the story.
Yeah, so you get a word like, I don't know, ponder, questioning, or looked,
Yes.
or whatever, just some word like that. And they're like, well, what if I said ponder whenever I said exclaimed earlier?
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
I get it. That's cool. Yeah.
Eventually, you kind of start to figure out towards the end of the game, and once you learn how Luca is as a character and stuff, you start to figure out, I bet that of these three choices, these two are not going to be the right ones, and this one is the correct one. So I'm definitely going to choose these two first because I want to see what
Right.
happens. And then whatever happens, whatever. Like, I would rather see the bad endings. You absolutely want to see every single ending in this game. Anybody that plays it would want to do that. So I would highly encourage, if you're going to play, to just basically do everything you possibly can, because it just makes sense. You want to see everything. You want to see how different characters can interact when you do different things, right? So prior to us getting done with the presentation, I definitely want to talk about the character portraits. I don't know if you are looking at any of them, but when they actually speak to each other, the detail in their portraits is amazing. And the game really puts a lot, or the designer really put a lot of emotion to their faces in different situations. Like when it calls for a sad face, they add tears. They really add a lot of distress to their face. When they're happy, they're overjoyed, smiling.
Yeah.
It looks really good.
Yeah, I'm looking at the trailer, and there's a guy. He comes in the frame. He's screaming as his hands on both sides of his face, and then like the little portrait has sweat drops coming off. You know, yeah. So like, that's pretty cool. Like it gives some more animation, which reminds me of like, you know, To the Moon and things like those two games that we played in Finding Paradise. It's like such a simple little thing that they do that gives the narration and storyline that much more life.
Speaking of To the Moon, I was going to mention this later, but I'm just going to say it now. I think both you and Steve would absolutely love this game based on your appreciation for To the Moon and for Finding Paradise. I'm just going to say that. Anybody that enjoys a game like that would really get a lot out of this game, but maybe even more so because of the choices you get to make and all the different branching paths. I feel like those games are very linear. Like it's built to be a specific way, but just all the branching paths and how they all make sense in this game is crazy to me. I just can't believe, like, you would have to think that at least one of them would be like kind of corny or kind of cheesy or not very believable, but they are all very good and worth experiencing. So that is as much as I really want to say about the story. I don't want to give a lot away. I'll just relate it to, and kind of how I would say it's similar to the Halloween theme, I guess. It really reminds me a lot of Goosebumps. How in a lot of Goosebumps books, a few kids decide they're going to go do something, and usually it's fairly harmless. The only reason you know it's going to go south is because you're reading a Goosebumps book, right? For a lot of that time, the first 3 chapters is just like, a couple kids are getting up to no good, doing something silly, and then they decide to enter a house that they probably shouldn't enter, and that's when stuff starts getting spooky and mysterious. And that's very much how Beacon Pines, the story actually plays out. So
yeah, I love that. It's like, oh, we're in a music park. Let's go into the back behind this roller coaster and see what we can get up to.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's exactly what Luca and Rolo do. Like they're just up to no good, doing silly stuff, and they end up getting in, I will say, way over their heads, like to the point where if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh, this sounds like kind of a kiddie story, like it's not going to be very shocking or anything, it's just going to be lighthearted. That is not the case. I'll just say there is death in certain situations, and it's very heart-wrenching at times. Like it's definitely an adult story. There's quite a decent amount of cursing that happens. Like it's rated teen, so it is definitely not as cutesy as it seems on the surface.
That's I would not have gotten that impression just looking at the information about it. So that's good to know. It's already on my wish list, just so you know. I'm going to be playing this from your description already. But I know you love talking about music. How is the soundtrack in the game?
It is amazing. I've actually listened to the music on its own, other than Death's Door, which everyone knows how much I love Death's Door. Other than that, I've listened to this soundtrack since playing it more so than anything else. Like I'll put it on while I'm working and stuff like that. It is so good. And Matt Meyer is actually the one who composed it. He's the one who also did like 70% of everything. He's credited for so much of what this game did, designer and production and things like that. So he is extremely gifted. There is a lot of piano. So it really reminds me of the Freebird games in a lot of ways. But
that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. We love those Freebird games. So
yes. I mean, it does a great job at whatever's going on in the game. They chose the exact right song to play. Like if it's an uplifting thing or if it's something scary is about to happen, because there are things that are kind of, you're never going to get scared out of your socks in this game. It's just not that kind of game, but it definitely puts you in a, like if you're supposed to be feeling dread, it does that very, very well. But they're honestly, every single song on this OST are listenable outside of the game. They just are amplified, and everything is amplified when they're in the game. So
you love to hear it. It's always good to find some more beautiful, like relaxing background music, which sounds like it has that vibe, which is awesome.
Whenever our next OST episode is, Beacon Pines will probably be on it as long as it fits, but I might try to just make it fit because I like it. I like it that much. So
you bring Beacon Pines and it's a chill song, and then I'll just bring some metal from Killing the Floor. And we'll just call it a date.
Yes, for sure. So, do you have any other questions before I get to my verdict?
I think you're gonna rate it pretty high, but is there any stumbling blocks for the game? Like you said, all positive things from what I can tell. Is there any negative thing you can say about this game? And then you can just throw it on the quest log where you would prefer it going.
I mean, I kind of mentioned how it can be a little bit annoying when you have to go back down different paths and you aren't quite sure where you were before.
Right.
The walking animation in houses, I guess, is a little annoying. I hate when you can't go as fast. I wish that your animation, if you have a run animation, that was the thing you did all the time, because this is one of those games, like I think of like the old school Pokemon games when you first could get running shoes. Mm-hmm. As soon as you walk into a Pokemon Center, it wouldn't let you run, and it's like, why? And that's how this kind of goes too.
I know. I know you're gonna give this a good rating, but I just want to. We don't need any negativity here. I don't know why I've even asked.
So, if you couldn't tell by the way I was talking, and it is honestly a little bit surprising for me. These are not this game is not the kind of game that I would have ever gravitated towards in the past. And once again, I'm here thanking IndieQuest, and hopefully everyone out there can get on the same boat as me when it comes to that and learn about different games when you're listening to this. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a main quest and a good game for this time of year. But I seriously think that if you're not in the mood, or if you're outside of the Halloween season and you're in the mood for a mildly creepy game that has a lot of mystery, but it has an excellent story, I think that this game would actually play well throughout the year. There's actually a lot of wintry things that happen during the game. So I think it would actually be a fine game to play during winter as well. So
yeah, just get like a hot cup of coffee, cuddle up with your Switch and play.
Yes,
something like that.
Yes,
yeah.
Yep.
Very
And
cozy.
yes. And the nice thing, the other thing I want to mention prior to us getting on with the rest of the episode is I think that this is a good game. Like you could definitely sit there and play it for 6 straight hours and beat it. Or you could do like I did, and I would play for like 10 minutes in the morning before work. Like you can do that. You can really, you might not want to, but you can break it down to bite-sized pieces and experience a little bit of the story. It's kind of like, you know how some books that you read, you're basically reading a book, right? Like that's the whole background. You can read a couple pages, throw your bookmark in, and go on with your day. And that's kind of how this feels. Like you can just throw a bookmark in and move on and then come back to it later that day or tomorrow or whatever, right? It really plays well. So you don't have to, if you have a busy home life or whatever, you don't have to sit there and constantly play this game. You can get a lot out of it in a short amount of time. So
It's always a little bit of a fun thing to have in your back pocket if you're just having a busy week at work or whatever. It's awesome.
Yep. For sure.
All right. Well, for our Halloween Spooktacular this year, we brought Killing Floor 2, and Beacon Pines. Today, you can find all these on like almost every platform. I said you said that Beacon Pines is not on PlayStation, right?
Not that I could tell, but yep.
Yeah. So you can find Killing Floor 2 on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. I don't believe there's any Steam Switch versions on the Killing Floor franchise, so just go in knowing that. But I think we brought kind of different ends of the spectrum, but that's really nice. It's really fun that we did that. How do you feel after going through a spooky episode? Trying to I'm not a huge horror game fan either, honestly. So trying to find something for this episode is hard some years. The last couple times I was like, what kind of spooky games can I bring? Because you want to bring something a little more unique or something maybe people haven't heard. So did you find it challenging?
I initially did find it challenging, but the funny thing is, as I was like writing notes down for Beacon Pines and stuff and looking online, I saw so much stuff yesterday and today for different horror adjacent games that I would have loved playing that were indie games. I just didn't. I don't know how you even search that, right? That was my problem. Like, how do I find something that isn't a horror game? I don't want a like flat out scare me out of my shorts type of game right now. I want something that is adjacent, could be actiony, a run and gun or something with horror theme. But then I saw like 3 games today and I'm like, that would have been perfect. That would have been perfect. That would have been perfect. And it's just like, oh, well, I guess here we are. Beacon Pines fits too, right? Like, and I liked how I found it, but yeah, it was a little bit tough for me.
Yeah. I was thinking that maybe you'll bring like Cult of the Lamb or something.
That would have been,
I know. Yeah, because I know that's like a very up your alley and Steve's alley, especially. I like games like that too, but I see that game and I'm like, yeah, Steve or our captain are going to be playing that like next week. You know what I mean? But I'm glad you're kind of going out of your comfort zone. Like I noticed that for your picks, especially since you've actually been on the show. That's really cool that you reach a little bit further than you would usually reach to pick out a game, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for this because it's allowed me to find stuff that I would not have otherwise played and actually realize that I enjoy it, right? Like, it's not like I'm sitting here and just like in grueling agony having to play this game that all I'm doing is clicking A and just reading. Like, no, it was, and honestly, I'll say it again. Like, I really think that it's worth experiencing for everyone. Like, it's such a good game. I'm just kind of mad at myself from my past self that I didn't get into this stuff sooner, and I'm happy that I am now. So,
yeah, there's so much of that out there. There's more than you probably even would even know. Especially one person made a game that no one heard about.
Right,
that's what this is all about. So,
exactly,
love it. All right, so that's the end of the episode. Our spooky. Yeah, we're not talking about Dookie, the Green Day album from the 90s, but gonna get some Halloween candy. Gonna enjoy the rest of the Halloween vibes. I've been watching lots of horror movies. It's been a really good time. I feel like I've been in the Hollywood. I can't say Halloween spirit more than I have been in quite some time. So it's been a really nice year for me on that front. So being able to sit down and talk about some spooky games is always fun. So I think that's going to do it for the episode. where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at Captain Drachma on Twitter, and of course in the Polymedia Discord, best place on the internet. Where can they find you, Josh?
They can find me at Frantic Society on Twitter, also in the Polymedia Discord, talking about, they have like a fashion thread in there now, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying that. But besides that, you'll find me somewhere on the Polymedia Network, polymedianetwork.com. And there's other shows that you can find over there, like
Tales of Lesser Medium. Just released a new episode.
I'll put you on the spot.
Just released a new episode. We always talk about Tales. It's been a few months, so get on over there and listen to some Tales. I believe it's on Bionic Commando. But
yes.
So go check that out. I need to. I think it just came out today or yesterday. So by the time this comes out, it'll have been a couple days. But definitely go check that out. Caleb and Trav are super funny in those episodes. So.
And then you can also, one more shout out, go check out Pam and Petey's new podcast, Point and Drink Adventures. So, and it's Pam and Petey talking about movies, games, drinking. It's a really good show. It's very entertaining. You'll get lots of laughs, and it's definitely a show that I've been looking forward to, and it puts a smile on my face. So I think it will put one on yours as well.
Sure.
You can also find us, the show, on Twitter at IndieQuestPod, or you can send us emails, IndieQuestPod@gmail.com, and we will read them on the show, use them as topics of discussion if your email is good enough, but otherwise we'll still talk about you. Be like, hey, this dude sent us a question, let's answer it.
Yeah.
And we will. We love doing that type of thing. So you know where to find us. And I think that's it for the show. I know that I feel like it's kind of fizzling out. Is it fizzling out, or is it just me?
Somebody's coming on the stage with a cane trying to yank us off, Josh.
Trying to yank us off.
Yep.
Yeah. You have any spooky parting words for the people out there?
If you're out there and you don't enjoy spooky games, be less of a baby than I am, because I get scared whenever I even see like title screens that look a little bit spooky. And just try them out. Try them out like I do, but more so like somebody else, because they scare me a little bit.
Some people think All Hallows Eve is just for fun and games. Well, allow me to explain. One night a year, the spirits come alive to tickle your fear. Let me be clear. Spider webs, severed heads, it's the dawning of the dead. Ghosts are spawning, demons calling you from underneath your bed. Halloween will make you run, make you scream, deep into the darkness of the night. Halloween will make you live out your worst dreams, deep into the darkness of the night. Here come the vampires, fiending for your blood. There's no escape, they're here to stay, so let them have their fun. Well, your world is falling down. Wicked witches, evil clowns, killer zombies take the town tonight. Spider webs, severed heads, it's the dawning of the dead. Ghosts are spawning, demons calling you from underneath your bed. Halloween will make you run, make you scream, deep into the darkness of the night. Yeah, Halloween will make you live out your worst dreams, deep into the darkness of the night. Oh, Halloween, it's Halloween. People panicked, what a sight, terrorized and horrified. Halloween, it's It's Halloween. I'm only joking, don't be scared. Leave your houses if you dare on Halloween.